Hello, everyone, and welcome to SAARC Regional Virtual Cybersecurity Conference 2022. I'm Krishna Pandey, a past president of ISC2 Bangalore chapter and currently working as director of security engineering at Salesforce. I will be moderating today's panel discussion, and I request our panelists to briefly introduce themselves. I will go ahead with Yogini first.
Sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Yogini, and I'm part of Northern Trust's data protection team from Bangalore. Thank you.
Mohan, you want to go next?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. So I'm Mohan. I'm giving leadership to IT governance and data protection, and I'm the data protection officer for MAS Holdings.
Now, Nathan.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me here.
All right. So thank you. Thank you for taking time to introduce yourselves. And let's start bang on the topic. So topic of our discussion is hackers don't care if you're compliant. Is that the right conversation to mitigate cyber risk? And I would like to kind of set some agenda and the kind of context to the panel discussion. So we all know, like, we have been hiring and people and definitely for a long time. So maybe this analogy will sound right. Everybody has knowledge, and with this knowledge check kind of comes in terms of examination, which gives you a degree. And when they're right to kind of ready to be hired, the companies will conduct an interview. And interviews are like very time limited or time boxed. So we get very limited time to judge a candidate. And sometimes we kind of end up with a bad hire. So though the compliance are a good check of trying to measure our security controls and efficacy, they are not perfect. And that's the topic of our discussion today. Like, breaches still happen. We know that all the Fortune 500 companies which might have breached in past, they must have necessary compliance requirements in place. But still, that is not enough. And how can we kind of basically improve the postures? How can we improve the things on the compliance side? How can we improve the things on the engineering side? That's the topic of our kind of discussion today. So let me start with question to the panels. So one of the question which I have, and maybe the audience also wants to know, is like, most of the time compliance is treated as a checkbox exercise. Like, hey, this is the regulation, these are the requirements, these are the controls which needs to be in place, and kind of let's go ahead and tick the check boxes so that we get the certificate and we get the business. So Yogini, what's your thought around this?
Sure, Krishna. Thanks. And once again, hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. So like Krishna mentioned, the topic is being compliant, and hackers don't care if you are compliant. Just before we start the actual topics, being compliant is a great starting point, I feel, for two reasons. One is it takes care of the basic hygiene stuff, and more often than not, that is what is required. And it gives our clients assurance of our security posture, essential for a brand. But now, are we doing it only as a checkbox activity? As in, is it, or is just doing that enough? No, absolutely not. We need to go and look. Have we added a lot of policies and controls just to be compliant while we have lost the sight of big picture? Or does every last employee of my organization understands the basics of cyber? And to quote Kevin Mitnick, the famous, shall we say, infamous hacker, where he says companies spend millions of dollars on firewalls, encryption, secure access devices, and whatnot. But it's money wasted because none of these measures address the weakest link in the security chain. And the very recent hack was an example of that. So coming to your question, Krishna, as in are we doing it as a checkbox activity? It should not be done as a checkbox activity. At least few things which we should keep in mind is how protected are my crown jewels? Am I aware of unique threats to my organization? How do I score on cyber resiliency and things like that? So, yep, thanks.
Thanks, Yogini, for putting that in context. So maybe let me go to now Nathan and ask about, like, we know that we bought a firewall, but like, is that configured or is that misconfigured? How do we kind of make sure that the security controls which we have in place, are kind of not like running strong but default credentials, for example, or absence of, like, though we have security controls in place and they are throwing out the results, but what about the activity remediation and those parts? So what should company do around the security controls to make sure that compliances are not checkbox? How can we kind of dig deeper into this? No, sorry, you're on mute.
No, absolutely, Krishna. It's like, as Yogini had mentioned, we have to have a look on this couple of key areas, right? Maybe from CISO standpoint, just I can highlight it. Always the CISO and then head of security will have two kind of eyes. One is from the hacker mindset, one is from the the compliance mindset. Always I take the compliance mindset as a benchmarks. It's like a minimum controls. Like if you take ISO 27001, PCDSS, NIST, SANS, CSA, you take it as a benchmarks. But does not mean like just once you fulfill the checklist, it has been taken care. Really, just we want to ensure that how effective enforcement is taken care. Now that play very significant role. That's a first and foremost one, where from the hacker mindset where we look, not just like fulfilling the controls and then how we can move ahead actually. A second very interesting point is the scoping. If you take any compliance like PCDSS, ISO 27001, they have a scoping only for their core element. Or they may have a multiple entity within this specific organization. They focus on only one entity, which is a limited scope, right? But the hackers, it's not that way, right? The hackers is ultimately once you connected to it's interconnected world. If any places, any one area, just if you pitch in, then from there just where we can move ahead and then take it forward. And third one is really the compliance is a one driven, right? The compliance and then regulatory points driven into the best, I can say. Maybe specifically, if you want to talk about the India perspective, the people wear helmet, the people wear the seat belt. It's like it's good for us, right? It's a 20% people will recognize, yes, it's very much is required to abide on that. But on the real case, it's not the way, right? The 80% of people, it's wear for the cops, because I want to fulfill that the regulatory requirement. So that's why that will give up the benchmarks in terms of the regulatory, and then compliance will give up benchmarks. But from the hackers' mindset, really we have to go on in terms of how effective enforcements which has been taken care. Second one is a scoping, which should cover this the entire area. And third interesting part is now the supply chain is completely widened. It is not as earlier the physical. I mean, 20 years back where we had a physical data centers, the networks and data it's evolved only on those areas. Now it's not like that, right? I can plug in whatever I want. I can take out, it's like just a matter of few minutes. I can buy some software where it invoke the API and it will pull that data and then it push the data. So that's why it makes up the huge impact on that. And fourth important responsibilities now post-COVID, and really not like now. So CISOs and then head of IT or head of security, they have to focus only on their organization. Now they have to focus on the employee home networks also, because threat actors, it comes from the the home networks also, right? So that will be because the system will have the VPN, and then from the VPN just they can penetrate very safely, securely, because the VPN traffic is not much monitored. So that's also the becoming the little bit of the bigger challenges.
Sure, Nathan. Thanks for adding your insights to the thing. So Mohan, maybe I would like trying to get a little bit more insight into the compliance side, and maybe it is radical as well. But as you know, right, for example, from the GDPR, where the fines are based on the revenue of the companies, right? Like now they're not tied to a static. Do you think based on the maturity levels of a security program inside a company, or based on the threat perception or attack surface of that company, should we also can do same thing for the compliance? Like, for example, there's ISO 27001 standard, but it has like different set of requirements for SMB, for enterprises, for Fortune 100. What do you think about it? Like, is that too radical to imagine?
Yeah, I think that's a good question, Krishna. And first of all, thanks ISC2 for having me, and it's great to be here. So to give context to the conversation and for the question. So when you look at compliance and security, I think we should be looking at that as two compensating factors. So one compensate the other. And it's like, it's like a car, right? So you have a engine and all those features, and compliance could be wheels. It's not that it's not that you're going to have security just with compliance. It's not that you're going to have security without compliance. So I think the approach for establishing a security program for an organization, compliance is a part where it keeps the balance of things in terms of whether what you're doing is sustainable and being effectively measured and monitored, which is an important piece. And at the same time, that all of us would like to, because cyber is about risk, and we would always like to have a certain assurance over it, just as we take granted for things in life. So every time we see a risk, we would like something to rely on to manage that risk. I think that instrument is compliance, and that instrument is those checklists. So if you look at things like, coming back to the question, or Krishna, things like GDPR, how would you manage that in terms of from a compliance point of view and risk point of view? So I'll give an example. So as an organization, we set out in this journey in 2018, and we took about 3-4 years doing that. And if I go back to my board and speak about how we manage risk for GDPR gives you the biggest fine of 4% of annual global turnover, right, in terms of non-compliance in case of a breach. But if you look at, for an organization, when you lose trust with the customer, with your consumers, that could be a 10% of the top line for you. So I think the conversation that organizations build and security professionals build around compliance and frameworks would need to drive that business perspective, because it builds trust with the consumers and the businesses that the organization is working with. And if you look at GDPR, organizations now have transformed from a framework or legislation to comply for, but rather thinking of it as a ways and means of building trust with your consumers and the other businesses that you work with. So I think compliance gives you an instrument or a tool to make sure that the things that you have built is sustainable and those frameworks are working for you. And when you comply and gives that checklist for the organization's teams, it would make their life easier. It won't take the burden away, but it would definitely make your life easier. So I think that's the point of view that most of the leaders in transforming organization would like to look at compliance.
Sure, thanks. I think my major question was around which the answer I was trying to get around. Like, do you think a small set of checkboxes, medium set of checkboxes, and like large set of checkboxes? Because when I say checkboxes, I'm just trying to take a dig at the hefty requirements put from the regulation perspective. So that's where. But yeah, maybe let me put it into different. So how do we feel about support of executive leadership in a successful cyber strategy, and how can we kind of try to more towards like get more budget based on the risk? And where do you think, and this is a question to Yogini, maybe you can add more about it, like buying the, like what can we do around getting an executive buy-in around this?
Yes, so for any strategy or anything to flow, Krishna, I believe the tone has to be set at the top. So when the executive leaders believe in the cybersecurity or having a strategy around cybersecurity, having cyber as a strong pillar in the organization, I think that's when the right tone is set. That is one thing. Coming to your point about budget, the person who is sitting in the board, one of them at least have to be really hardened, or I would say soaked in cybersecurity, has grown doing that diverse fields, at least one of those, so that he can speak for the cause when they are deciding the budget. And the point is not to scare the rest of them saying, okay, we can get hacked and this much fine and that much fine. It's about, like that passion and persistence which hackers display to attack us. I think that's the passion and persistence the representative of cyber in the board should speak. And that is one part. And the second part is, when that is done, to make sure every last person in your organization is at least aware of basics of cyber, and they display that passion in protecting whatever we are trying to protect. And Of course, I mean, it's one person does it and the last person is also knowing it, but then the rest of them are not in sync with it. I think that entire chain should be such that they understand and follow cyber. I know very, very utopian, but I think it should start and we will get there if we want to do it, if we have that passion. Yeah.
Thanks, Yogini. So let me go to Navneetan. So I think one of the complaints I have kind of received from the C board, like, hey, we gave you the budget and you bought the tool. Why the security risk is still there? Why are we still being kind of getting those kind of bug bounty reports or security researchers report around the same thing, though you have a security control, like you have a web firewall. What is that doing? So, Navneetan, what do you feel about buying the tools and meeting compliance and actually efficacy of the security controls?
A very interesting question, Krishna. I mean, on the current trend, that's what it's happening. I mean, if you see this, a lot of vendor, they may say it's like, we comply with zero trust model. The product may not be compliant with the zero trust model, right? That's, the architectures. So similarly, if I have a kid, like I have buy some, toy, she'll be happy with, the few hours. That's it, right? If you look for some of the new toys, definitely as a kid, she wanted to get into the, the other toy. She might not look like this. What are the toy? Just we bought it. It's not utilized, effectively, right? She's not played on, enough time. Definitely, for the new things that's coming to the market, the people will be keep looking. That's in the new. So that's what it is happening on the, the cyber industry. From my CISO standpoint, like always, we look for the people, process, technology. The governance also play very significant role, where we are going to connect all the dots very effectively, right? Otherwise, it won't play on the, the market. And what's the current trends? From the, the compliance standpoint, let us take just I should have the SIM. Just I'm taking like it may be on the RBI or it may be on the SEBI or maybe any other regulatory. The people are taking just I have a SIM tool. I have connected to the couple of tools. That's done. Okay, just you have a SIM tool, just you can fulfill and then move ahead. But on the ground, hacker, as I rightly asked, just from the hacker mindset, like what are the tools you have it, that won't sufficient enough, right? How it is detecting, how it is add value, how it is, enforcing controls in terms of the preventions also play very significant role. So that part is missing. So really from our standpoint, we have to look on from architecturally, like where and all we have to place what kind of tools, and then this it has to be just to be place a firewall. Very simple example, you have taken the WAF. The WAF have limitations in terms of the API security, right? The WAF will not touch just what you have configured in between the the API, whether it's encryptions or the handshake or the man in the middle attack. It's like it won't touch on those aspects. So really, the WAF have limitations on the the layer 7, like what are the traffic it is coming, what are the attempts it is. But we can, as a hacker, they can play a lot of the things with a functional flow also, right? It's not only on the technical side. So that's what it is. The hacker mindset, it's always now they're playing with just a function. We are thinking like a little bit the bigger level. In India, a couple of, I don't want to name it a company name. It's a very simple, just a phone call. Like I'm from the IT. Just if you want to change the password, could you please give the old password? Then only I can quickly change it within 30 minutes. We wanted to move ahead. So it's like the employees feel like you owe something urgent. We wanted to give it. That's more than enough. Once you give in that, then I'm a genuine users in your network. Any of the tools will help us to prevent? No, because already as a hacker, as a third party, as a maybe threat actor, just already I'm part of your system. Through that, just I can penetrate. So now it's instead of more tools, we need a lot of strategy and then connecting all the people, process, technology, governance, enforcements to ensure that the effective control enforcements instead of having the checklist of yes, we have XYZ tools and we have done it. And maybe if you want to take just simple example, I mean, 2013, if you see this, the target, of course, I can say they are the, eye opener for the most of the industry. If you see this is a target, like what not, they comply with all the compliance. They have the amazing tools across the industry, but still it has went on because they missed out on the third party vendor, like where they got into their data center where they're able to tap all the your credit card swiping information, as part of the data centers, like they also got one copy to move ahead actually. So that's why the tool alone it won't help. Really, just we have to look on the holistic approach of the effective enforcements to add values.
Yeah, and if I can add, two or three lines to what Navneet mentioned is, I also feel that the number of tools that we get right on our systems, one is these agents, they slow down our systems, and two, for the analysts, it just creates alert fatigue. I mean, I think you also mentioned, and we know the case that happened, right? Because so many tools are generating so many alerts that it is losing its value, meaning. Yeah.
Sure, thanks, Yogini. So maybe on the similar thoughts, or like a train of thoughts, maybe let me ask Mohan. So the board decided to invest in a security program, and they said, hey, these are the security controls you put in place. And now they want a quarterly report from you saying, hey, quarter one, show me the maturity of your program. And you will have, for example, program A, B, C, D, E, and from red to yellow to green. And the like basically the C-level will look at their dashboards and they would be happy. Yeah. Is that enough?
Yeah, good question, Krishna. So I think how most of the leadership, so if you look at security steering committees to the boards, and they would always like to know, I've invested this much, I've invested $50 million, and so what's my return on it? I think just as with most of the technology cases, if you do not have problems, that itself means a certain set of return on investment. And how you quantify that? So some of the conversations that I have had in the past is that, I think all the tools, just as Navneet mentioned, so the tools, if you have a internet security layer, if you have EDR, if you have SIEM, so you would have certain quantitative numbers related to the managed, or rather what you see as break-in attempts. So who's scanning for your ports? Who's scanning for your domains? Who's buying similar, if you have threat intel, who's buying similar domains? How many of those kind of incidents? How much of noise in the dark web, in the forums that you're going to hear with your threat intel? And all these data that you put to, and frequently, like at least quarterly, if you're able to meet the leadership and show that this much of things happen. So our firewall stopped this much of intrusion attempts. Our EDR detected this much of suspicious events. So this is your dashboard for the technology investment. Then maybe the people aspect of it. How much of an impact has it created? Because you will, if you are to monetize it and present it in an ROI format, that would only happen in a breach, right? You don't want to go there in the first place, right? So the strategy is that you make sure that how much of a defense has been provided by the investment. So you keep the leaders informed. And to add to Yogini's point in terms of how you convince the leadership, I think there are a lot of security professionals who will just say, okay, my leadership does not understand security. They don't understand what I'm saying. But I think as professionals, I would be failing if they don't understand. So that's on me. So that's me not being able to convert the conversation into an ROI conversation, which the leaders would understand. Might not be the technicality, might not be the incidents, but you create enough awareness, connecting that with your stakeholders, consumers, other partners that you work with, and this is where we want to be, and make an interest in the core business. So I'll give one example where people can. So we have a vision, or rather place that we want to be as enabling dreams for communities that we work with. So, and the people, employees to consumers to everyone, enabling dreams. And we connect the security strategy program, saying that protection of, or rather privacy and data protection is in the heart of, enabling dreams for our stakeholders. So you connect the security program with the organization vision in a way, so that way that you would see more connection with the stakeholders board, that there's a return of investment and the security is integral part of the organization. It's not just an expense that you put money for. So I think that's a good way to look at it.
Krishna,
thanks, Mohan.
In addition to the Morgan great insights, actually, specific to the board, I mean, the current trends, maybe the last 3 to 4 years, I can see the people have more focus, more attention on the cybersecurity, because it's like business driven, right? I'm a CEO, I may have a 3x plan. Maybe if any one incident, one breach, it goes to the minus 3x. So coming from the minus to the neutral itself, they have to spend a lot of time. So if you want to buy any tool, if you want to do any addition, just it's a matter of cost. But reputations, you cannot buy it anywhere, right? It has to, because it's like a customer business. It's maybe the B2B or the B2C. Absolutely, that once as Yogini and then you had established, like the trust play very significant role, from end to end. So that standpoint, just we make up, the huge impact on, that side. And second one is, as Mohan had mentioned, like two key points, right? One is we want to make an impact on the quantifications. Yes, we can do the quantifications. With the board, just what are the risks you have it? Maybe you can put a quadrant and then saying that what are the risks you have it in the top, and to minimize the risk from that quadrant to the bottom quadrant, like what are the things that's required in terms of cost, what is required, what is the process change, what are the technologies required, so that we can make a progress to make it from red to the green. I need this other changes. There's a cost, not only cost alone. Just I want to do this process change also. So let's take a very simple. Just I'm right now. Just I'm not doing any DevSecOps, or I'm not doing any of the security assessment for the product development. But the process change is also very important, right? From the CTO standpoint, any product going out of my organization or while being developed, this has to be assessed by the the security. This is a commitment. This may not require money. This need a little bit on the process change, right? So that's the way this commitment it comes from the the people process, technology, not only on the the tools, and then in terms of the money what organization is going to spend over there. Over to you, Krishna.
Yeah, thanks, Mohan, to kind of definitely tying it up to the awareness. So I think educating the board about the security programs we are driving, and as Navneethan kind of touched upon, the tech debt which we have accrued upon the past, like there's so much tech debt and inertia to show the actual ROI to surface. It will take a huge amount of time, and the boards may be getting impatient, like, hey, I already gave you money, why are you still red or yellow, and why we are not getting the quick results. So thanks for touching upon those points. So while we are kind of talking about it, and I think Navneethan did very briefly to kind of talk about DevSecOps. So maybe my question is around like how you feel that innovation or automation, observability, these sort of trends where, like as somebody was touching upon, like the zero trust architecture, the AI, ML, all these buzzwords, blockchain, whatever is coming, like how are they helping? Or is there a way they can add to our compliance side? Are they going to add more burden, or are they here to help the this compensating controls or compliance requirements? What is your take, Mohan, on that?
Yeah, good one, question. So this is a constant question I think security professionals are being asked, because the moment that you burden the new project of innovation with either with ML or robotics or into whatever the field that you invest on, when you bring the security portion, it becomes unviable. Because the cost is too much, because you have the total security burden on the project. So these are some of the questions that we have to face. So I think the in the innovation space, the understanding is the projects that organizations do, what's the adaptation and the scale. I think that's that's a piece that organizations need to be mindful about. You are not going to do an innovation or a new implementation for ML or even for IoT. You are not going to automate overnight all your plants, all your manufacturing sites, right? So you are going to take it as chunks, and your experiment and how you scale that need to have a security design in place, which can be scalable. So this is a conversation which the security professionals need to have initially with the architects and the business stakeholders at the very early stages when the pilots are being done, so that at the scale you're looking at this much of security investment as well. So example, so if you're automating manufacturing plants and you have a significant IoT consumption that you're planning, so you take a pilot plant and you understand what the security infrastructure is going to look like. So probably your data network is now going to be segregated for IoT and of course the data traffic. So these kind of architectural conversations need to happen at the pilot phase, and you inbuild the privacy or rather data protection and the security concerns with the architects. So all the innovation projects, I think how innovation projects are looked into should be in consultation with security teams, because I have seen personally that security becomes a huge burden once you go to, once you go to scale the product, right? So I think that's an important piece where you need to have checklists, the security by design piece. And then it's going to be understanding and creating, once again, that the stakeholders, owners, and the developers, architects having an appreciation for the security. I think that's an important piece that you want to build, where then for most of the parts, even because now even if you design the solution, most probably it's going to be an outsourced delivery of it or the development of it. So whereas all those components need to be established to build a secure product. So I think technicalities differ for us. We took different cloud security journey, different IoT security journey, different blockchain journeys, different data warehousing journeys for different security, because the technology stack is different, the architecture are different, but having that essence at the very beginning and the pilot stage matters a lot.
Thanks, Mohan. Maybe let me go to Yogini and ask about, like, where there are like two things, right? Like, where we are talking about technology, but definitely people and process, where a new vendor comes up with a security product and say, hey, unless you are using this shiny new tool, which is empowered by the AI, ML, blockchain, or whatever technology is, and we have like the silver bullet which you need. And do you think that if our workforce is empowered with the knowledge on what are the risks, what we actually need to kind of fulfill that, and like, does our attack surface really requires that cutting edge technology, and being aware of our gaps, and then improve, like having very process to handle it, and then actually giving up to the pressure, like, hey, if you don't have my tool, you are not good. What do you feel about that?
Yeah, and thanks, Krishna, for asking this, because this is something which is very sensitive to my heart. What I feel is security should be kept very simple. It should be very simple to adopt for anybody in the organization. I need not be like someone in security for 10 years and then have to understand it. It is one. It should never compromise user experience. Otherwise, I am going to bypass it. If you make it difficult for me, I will try ways and means to bypass it. And third, if I'm convinced that I should be doing this, even if it is complex, I will do it. So to your question, if someone comes to the organization, and a common scenario is when we go to these conferences, we are presented with the fanciest tools which say that, okay, all your problems will be solved. It's like a wand for you. But then when we onboard, budget definitely is one part. And I think you very rightly called out, does it really address the gap, or does it just paint a picture of addressing the gap, is what one must be very, very, very of. And does it fit in my ecosystem, or will it be well integrated in my ecosystem, is another important point that one needs to think of. And lastly, I would say it should follow the due diligence before it enters our organization. And if that means letting it go, I think that should be fine, because there's plethora of tools available in the data security world, in the API security, you name it, and you have so many of them. So yeah, that's my take on it.
So let me go to Navneetan. So in the security, there is a very funny thing, like, hey, I'm a CISO and I don't need to do anything but just accept the risk. Like, how you think is like, hey, there is a security threat, but I accept the risk. Can the CISO chill out like that?
Definitely, Krishna. You know the answers, right? So risks are dynamics. That's what just initial conversations we had. It really how we can make CISO have a good sleep at night, right? That's what it is connected to the dots. The risks are dynamic. Really, we are not sure. It's like a honeycomb, right? Organization is a honeycomb. Really, we are not sure what are the honey comes and take out the data. It has like the multiple areas, right? We cannot identify, right? The honey is, it's like the honeybee is a huge, really you cannot count. That's what it is a current trend. That's what it is a current, organization, enterprise is happening. And that standpoint, it's a risks are dynamic. Maybe today morning, 10 o'clock, my environment is so secure. Then 5, there is data leakage. It might be this very simple logic, right? The people, wherever they have done the code repository check-in, instead of private, and they would have done it on the public repository. So my all hard-coded passwords, everything is gone through that, just so they can go ahead. So that's why there's a continuous attack surface management play very significant role, since risk, everything is dynamic. And second one is really where we wanted to make it as security as part of culture. We cannot say that it's driven by only the cybersecurity team or the IT security team. It is everyone's responsibility, right? Very simple, phishing will lead to the major thing, where the technology cannot play much role over there. Actually, it's maybe the social engineering where the technology cannot play much role there, right? So that standpoint, risks are dynamic. Really, we have to put a lot of effort, and we have to build a culture, and the culture should see that is part of everyone's responsibility from the way they start the journey until going for the implementations.
Krishna, if I can add something here.
Please go ahead. Yeah.
So I also feel that it's equally important to focus on cyber resiliency for the CISOs, because they get to set the culture as well. But it's just a matter of time when hackers get to us. We have to acknowledge and accept that hackers do have a certain advantage over us, and it is a good idea to have a robust business continuity plan in place, or have incident responders who are well trained for the isolation and orchestration in the case of an event, stress testing of incident response plan. I think that is an equally important factor in today's times.
Sure. So when we are at the topic of, as we know that audits are typically point-in-time assessments and Noithan touched upon continuous monitoring of attack surface. What do you think, Mohan, is there also deep continuous auditing, given that the APTs and the more of automated attacks, if you more to the analogy of Noithan, this is like a honeycomb. So if you have seen the logs from honeypots, as soon as you kind of go and put a honeypot, which is intentional, and you feel that it is getting hit by those bots, less than I would not even 24 hours, more than that, it is taking less and less time for anything on the internet to be kind of crawled and attacked and this thing. So what about the continuous auditing rather than a point-in-time assessment? Where are we in that journey?
Yeah, absolutely, Krishna. I think continuous auditing is something really, really important, because before this, I used to do a cybersec operations role, and once you have a major incident only, you would understand the importance of audit, right? So you would not understand before an audit. So the thing is, the idea is that when you have security, you break it down to two parts. So one is prevention, one is resilience, right? So we all like to invest so much on prevention, thinking that every day is a good day, everything is prevented. So we take that for granted. We have fancy tools, we invest on those tools, and we say that this stop this many things. But that one threat that comes along and gets into your network, what is your resilience going to look like? When that one ransomware hits, what is your response plan looks like? I think the organizations need to mature into a stage where you are so proud of your preventative strategies, but you are more confident about your resilience strategies, right? So that is where your incident response, how you plan your backup, how your data strategy looks like, and how your overall architecture, so micro-segmentation to all that looks like. So all that piece is a matter of audit and checklist, right? Because that's how people are trained. That's how people are going to respond. So your incident plans, random checks, desktop checks that you do, red teaming, purple teaming. So these are the things that would give you that confident over resilience piece. So audit is a real important piece where someone, I think third-party audits are really good, because someone who would not have seen it the way that you saw it all this time would come and ask, hey guys, all right, your core system backup is down. What are you going to do? How are you going to replicate? So your DR drill, usually you go for a DR drill which you are comfortable with a minimum disruption to business. But the auditor will come and ask you, is that the right way? Is that the right way to do it? Other people are doing it this way, and this is the right way to do it. So if you are continuously challenged and someone is asking you that question, you build more muscle into your resilience framework. So which is very, very important, because preventive always gonna, you spend a lot of time with the tools, and you will be a lot of time set to culture and awareness, as Ravit mentioned. So but the resilience piece is very dependent on the internal practice and capacities, your processes, which should be definitely driven by a good audit and a review framework.
Thanks, Mohan. I think you kind of summed it really nice. So I think there's a growing voice in the industry where we are saying that instead of like thinking that we can't be hacked, like let's adopt a assumed breach mindset, like, hey, we are already breached. And maybe instead, like we should look at the resilience part and like invest a lot in the business continuity side. Like even if we are hit by ransomware, even if we some kind of hit by a breach, what can we do to recover faster? And where is our business continuity plan? So I think that's a great point there. So because we are kind of, so let's get to our last question for the panel this time, because we are like about approaching towards time. So one thing which is like we have all faced audit and multiple time in our careers, right? So many times happens that when the auditors come, and there are two sort of mindset, like, hey, let's tell what is needed. And even if something is broken and we know that on the from the other side, unless it is asked very specifically, we won't kind of go and disclose them from our side, because we want to pass the audit, right? No one wants to fail the audit. Like we don't want NCs on our reports. So do you feel that given the recent incident where some C-level has been inducted for covering up the breach and other allegations, do you think in the future when the audit happens, whoever is being audited should have that transparency or honesty to kind of go and tell about the gaps themselves, or should wait for the auditors for the questions to be asked?
So there is no yes and no answer for this, Krishna. But then, of course, ethics/integrity is fundamental and is the fabric of, I think, all our organizations. So we will definitely stick to that. And it's just about the repercussions is what we feel. And if we feel that auditor has pointed out the right thing and there's a scope of improvement, they get to improve because that particular finding has been observed, it should and must be reported. I will stop at that.
So final comments from Navneet.
Yeah. So in addition to the Yogini, it's a couple of things, right? Where we were in the Big Four, and where we have seen many, the CEOs, on the kickoff meeting. Couple of CEOs very surprising saying that, like in front of their internal team, I want to ensure that none of the non-compliance is coming to the picture, because we have such a great setup. We want to ensure that everything is clean. So we want a clean report. And we have seen just the other set of CEOs, they saying that, like, I want more findings. Just I want to ensure that more findings, so that, instead of just showing that everything is green, at least from now onwards, I can start patching on that. So we have a two set of people. I mean, moreover, just from my standpoint, is I look for my internal audit should have more findings. It should not be in terms of everything is green and then clean. So that's why if there is no finding, definitely, I may have query on, like, how we have done the audit, like what are the areas just you have focused. If it's more findings, then it's okay. I mean, you guys have done a great work. That's the way just your use cases should play, right? It should not be on the checklist based audit, whether you have this, yes, you don't have this, no, it may not be that. From there, just we have to take a lead questions, how you are navigating in terms of the panel. Say we, just we have to move ahead and can get the findings to, on values. And next important point is, in terms of the finding standpoint, not just having audit alone, it won't get over. After audit, what are the critical findings where we have closing as soon as possible? Similarly, incident detection prevention also. If any incident, it's always happen, but how soon you come back, how soon you can back to the track, and then how soon you can make a containment. That's what it is of readiness, and then preparedness, your the mental the mindset, which is very much is required. Over to you, Krishna.
Thanks, Navneet. So Mohan, your last take on that.
Yeah. I think Navneet was spot on, because audit as a checklist and audit as something external where you need to tick off and finish, those days are gone. So those days were over in 80s or 90s, I don't know. So that's gone. So these are learning and maturing organizations who look at every opportunity to improve and correct yourselves, right? So that era of organizations is here. If you think audit is something to get over with, you have a serious problem within the organization, not just security, right? So I think you should look at it as a point where you have invested your time and effort, more than the money, time and the effort, and you should be expecting a return to improve the posture of security. So most of the times you have to have a conversation with the auditors to say, you're not here to do an engagement for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 5 weeks. You are here to partner with us to make us improve. So give your best. So give your best. We want your best, and with an objective. So objective is to make sure that organization security posture would be better after this audit. So it's not to have 100 findings, not to have 50 findings. I wouldn't mind giving that one finding, which will help our organization mature, go one step further. And I think that's the mindset that the leaders are adopting. And audit gives that visibility and control for you. And you have to drive that with the organization culture and the people inside, saying that this is a great opportunity for us to improve. So let's just do it and be very open-minded. It's a fact-finding method, not a fault-finding method. Let's be very open and take that culture. I think that's the mindset that you need to have.
That's a great point, Mohan. As you said, like we should look for the opportunities on how to partner and improve, and how it can be a continuous process. And compliance as an enabler, compliance as something which you get at a shoulder to stand upon and like kind of lift upon the security controls. So I think, yeah, that has been a great insights from all of you, and really thank you everyone for making time for this. I would kind of, because I'm more of a Tom Cruise fan and I like Top Gun, so I would like to conclude by saying, is your compliance writing checks which your security controls can't cache? So keep an eye on your security controls efficacy, use compliance as an enabler, and yeah, that's the way to go. Thank you, everyone.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks,
a lot.
thanks everyone.
Bye.